Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. So excited to be able to spend some time with you today. I know we'll have more people joining as we go, and I want to say a special thank you to those who are overseas. I'm located in Waco, Texas, and I know some of you have let me know that you are logging in around midnight your time. So thank you for doing that. Happy to have you here. Also want to say a very special happy Valentine's Day to all of those who are celebrating that today. If you were just reminded that it is Valentine's Day, let this be a reminder to go grab something for your significant other right when this webinar is done. There's still time for some of you, so just let that be a reminder. This webinar will be functioning as a Zoom event. So if you have any questions or anything, you can put those in the Q&A. If you have anything you'd like to share with others, you can put that in the chat and those kinds of things. There's no audio, so you can't unmute or anything like that, but you can place the questions in the Q&A. I will not get to the questions on this webinar necessarily, but I will follow up with them after the webinar via email to whoever asked that question. So please put questions there if you have any, and I'd be more than happy to follow up with you after or get you in touch with someone else who can speak to your question locally in your area. So today's webinar is titled Tug O War, the importance of a focused singleness of purpose. Focused singleness of purpose is something that a lot of people talk about, but I want to dive into practically how we can do that, why we need to have a focused singleness of purpose, and all information regarding a singleness of purpose and what it can do for you and your organization. So let's go ahead and get started. I believe it's incredibly important first to be transparent with you. I am not a fan of presenters and webinars who keep all of their details of their own lives away from others. I think if we're going to talk about something like focused singleness of purpose, you probably would like to hear a story about how I've applied this to my life as well. So I want to start with that. A few years back, this was during the height of the COVID pandemic, when everyone was wondering, what are we going to do with our time? Those kinds of things. Not everyone was thinking that, but our family was, because we were working from home and had never done that, and things were locked down. And we said, what are we going to do? We didn't have any kids at the time. Now we have 2 little boys, but at that time we didn't have any kiddos. So my wife and I were, what are we going to do? So I said, I'm going to set 2 massive goals. One is I'm going to write a book. How many of us have said that, write a book, and I'm going to run a marathon, right? And I said, okay, I can do these 2 things. I'm going to write a book and I'm going to run a marathon. That is a fun goal. This is going to be so much fun. Can't wait to do it. Can't wait to tell people about it. However, there was 2 challenges with that. These are small little challenges that got in the way of that. One is that I wasn't a writer. Sadly, I will share that at the time, I'm an avid reader now. I love writing now, but in high school, years back, I didn't read one book start to finish almost all of high school. So, your presenter wasn't much of a reader. Usually people who don't read aren't much of writers either. So I just really started reading more, and I'd really started wanting to write more, but I'd never written something long form. The longest thing I'd ever written was a 20-page paper when I was at university at the time. And a 20-page book is not much of a book, is it? So I had a ways to go there. The other problem was I wasn't much of a runner, and that can be a problem. If you're running a marathon, 26.2 miles, you need to be able to run. That's a pretty important quality of someone who is a marathon runner. I could not run 1 mile at the time. So the longest thing I had written was 20 pages, and the longest distance I could really run was around 1 mile. So there was some work that needed to be done there. So those were 2 challenges, and we'll kind of circle back to this later on. But I want to kind of dive in a little more here with what is the game of Tug O War. You might be familiar with it, you may not be, but I think this translates everywhere in the world. We've all kind of played this, right? You have a rope in the middle, right? And then you have 2 people, one on each side. And this is a really in-depth, intense slide for you. This took me a lot of time to put together here, as you can obviously tell. I've got a line there for the rope. You've got person 1 on this side and person 2 on this side, and they're pulling against each other. And it's basically who can get the other person to cross the middle first. And that is the game. Now, there are some different things you can do. You can add more people to both sides and have groups pulling against each other. That can be a lot of fun, but you may have played this game at some point in your life. And so I want you to kind of picture that game as we move forward here. Well, there's also an internal tug of war that happens. So that's the game, right? But there's an internal tug of war that happens anytime we set goals or anytime we do anything. We've got distractions and being busy on one side, and then we have the goal on the other side. And sometimes when you see distractions and busyness, you may think those are all bad things. A lot of the things on that side, we'll get to this later, but those can be really good things, but they're just have nothing to do with the goal. And we'll get into why the singleness of purpose is so important there, right? If you're distracted with something, even if it's a good thing, it has nothing to do with your singleness of purpose and your goal, and you're not focused, then it can actually turn into a bad thing. So let's kind of dive in a little bit more. There's three options when we're playing our internal tug of war. There's three options, right? One is we can join the world. And you may say, well, the world, what does that mean? That means all of society. Society is running around distracted and busy. We are busier than ever before. We have more information than ever before with the rise in AI. There's more books being published than ever before, more articles, more news outlets, more social media platforms. There's more content and information than anyone in the history of humanity has ever had access to. That can be a really good thing. For an example, my wife and I, like I said previously, we have 2 little boys now, both under the age of 2. So we are in this parenting thing now. If you want to throw some parenting tips in the Q&A, we will take those gladly. However, something will happen, and it is really nice to have Google or YouTube. We were installing a car seat in our car for the first time. I don't know how parents did it before YouTube. I'll be honest. We watched the YouTube video, and that was incredibly helpful. So these are all good things, right? But there's also a ton of negative things out there. And also even good things. We can start scrolling and scrolling and scrolling on our phones, or just get lost in all of these other things and be completely distracted with our email inbox getting flooded, newsletters we subscribe to, all these things, right? And we just get so busy. If you have kids in the house, you're driving them around to all of their activities. You're busy, busy, busy. And then you get home at night and you're finally done. The kids are asleep and your head hits the pillow. You fall asleep and you wake up and you do it all over again. So that's one side of the world, running around like crazy, no purpose, no focus, just surviving, getting things done, but not actually making progress in any area of our life. This leads to some very alarming statistics that we'll get to later. The second, and this is where a lot of us probably are, is you just kind of stand in the middle. You say, well, I'm not like actively distracted and busy. I'm just kind of in the middle. And we're just going to kind of see what happens here. But if you're holding on to the rope in tug of war, and you're just holding on, you're like, well, I'm not pulling, I'm just kind of standing here. Eventually, you're going to passively end up on the wrong side. Because if you're not pulling against the world is going to pull you to its side, because the world is always pulling. There's always distractions. There's always busyness. There's always noise. So if you think, well, I'm just not going to get involved and I'm just going to kind of stand here in the middle, you are going to naturally trend towards the side of busyness and distraction and burnout. That is going to happen. Or you can do the third thing, and that's what I want to talk about today. You can actively pull, not passively, you have to actively pull against those distractions, against that busyness. You have to take a step towards the goal actively. And it's hard. You have to pull. We talk about in tug of war, if you remember playing it, you're pulling on the rope, you get these blisters on your hands, your biceps and your triceps and your shoulders and your deltoids and your legs, your quads, and your calves, they all start burning, and it's hard, and it's hard work, and you're pulling, and you're sweating, and you're getting these blisters, and your feet hurt, and you're sliding. It's hard work. But if you just let go, you're going to lose. But you have to keep pulling if the goal is important enough. And that is what the internal tug of war is that's going on. And all of us, now I have a question. Now, for some of you international people, I will be shocked if some of you have heard of this guy. Whenever I did it, I brought up Tony Delk to someone recently who lived in Phoenix, Arizona, which is where the Suns play. They had never heard of this person either. So if you haven't heard of Tony Delk, that is okay. But who here has heard of Tony Delk? Just think about that. The name Tony Delk, does that come to mind? Okay, no. He was a professional NBA basketball player, one of the greatest basketball leagues in the entire world, arguably the greatest league in the entire world. And he was on one of the best teams in the entire world at the time. He went crazy one game. He was an incredibly average player with insane talent. He just never did much with his talent. And that's not to belittle Tony Delk. He made it to the NBA. Clearly, he did a lot with it. But once he got there, he was just average. Kind of a role player, sat on the bench most of the time. But there was one game where he got in and he scored 53 points. Almost set a franchise record at the time for the team. 53 points in a game. Insane. However, he never did it again. He did it one time. And it was amazing. He made all these highlight reels. But now, if you look up Tony Delk, what will come up is highlights from that one game and lists that say the most unlikely high-scoring games of all time. So it was incredibly unlikely that he would score this many points, right? And so that is Tony Delk. So let's look at another player here. How about LeBron James, right? Who's heard of LeBron James? If there's anyone on this call who has not heard of LeBron James, I would be very shocked. And if you haven't, honestly, good for you, because that means you're probably unplugged from social media and things, and good for you. That is really good. But most of us have probably heard of LeBron James. He's in the same league. He's been playing. He started playing just a few years after Tony Delk. So why have we heard of LeBron James way more than Tony Delk? Why is that? Well, that's an easy answer. LeBron James is the all-time scoring leader in the NBA. Highest scoring player of all time, ever. The highest scorer. But so how did he accomplish that? It wasn't from one 53-point game. What made him so consistent for so long? He's been doing this for years. I believe he's now the oldest player in the NBA, and he's still one of the top scorers, top 5, top 10 player in the NBA, even though he's the oldest player in the NBA at this point. Well, LeBron James spends $1.5 million per year on his own training, his own recovery, and his own diet. He has been investing in himself $1.5 million per year, just in himself, making himself better, taking care of himself, constantly training, constantly practicing, not letting him go through peaks and valleys. If you look at his scoring average over his entire career, it is just incredibly consistent. Just year after year, the same thing after the same thing. That's why he's won NBA championships and MVPs, and he's the all-time leading scorer now. I'm not here to say he's better than Michael Jordan. I will not start that debate. If you want to start that debate, you can go into the Q&A and do that, and I'll be happy to follow up on that after this meeting. But that is not the purpose of this. But we've all heard of LeBron James. Why? Why have we heard of LeBron and not Tony Delk? Because one major pull in the right direction is not enough to keep the momentum going forever. And that's the point I want to make today, is one win is not enough. One 53-point game is not enough to make you a Hall of Famer in the NBA. One big sale is not enough to sustain you for the entire year. One big week at the gym is not enough to keep the weight off forever. One book is not enough to change your life. One article is not enough, right? It's got to be consistent steps in the right direction over a very, very, very long period of time. It's got to be consistent. You got to always be investing in yourself and growing yourself. So how is your internal tug of war different than the game of tug of war? How is it different? What are the differences? Well, in regular tug of war, the game, there's usually someone that says, okay, 1, 2, 3, go. And then both sides start pulling. So there's no momentum, and then all of a sudden you're both fighting for that momentum. In your internal tug of war, that's not the case. By the time you've set your goal and you start your internal tug of war, the world has already been pulling you towards negative conditioning. You've been told no your whole life. You've been told you may not be good enough to do something. You've had bad experiences in the past. You've got this negative conditioning. I can't do that. I'm not good enough for that. That's too difficult. That's going to take too long. That costs too much, whatever it might be. The second thing is poor habits, right? Maybe the world has pulled you towards bad habits, right? Staying up too late, getting up too late, not sleeping well, spending too much time on your phone, eating poorly, drinking poorly, whatever it may be, these bad habits, or just productivity habits, right, that are bad. The other thing is bad attitudes, right? Studies have been done that show when there's a lull in conversation, what is something that people say the most? It's usually, oh, I'm so tired. Can you believe how cold it is outside today? Oh my gosh, I'm so busy. It's never, I'm so happy today. I feel so rested. It's always something negative, right? Our natural tendency is towards these bad, negative attitudes, negative conditioning, and poor habits. So by the time you set a positive goal and you want to start pulling in the right direction, you've already had the world pulling against you for years and years and years. So we've got to not only start our momentum, we have to stop the other side's momentum. And how do we do that? Through very, very, very specific focused activity. That's how we do that. Stopping your negative momentum and starting your positive momentum is far more difficult than continuing positive momentum, right? And that just goes back to the law of momentum. Once momentum starts for you, it's easier to keep it going. The law of momentum states that it is easier to keep an object in motion once it is already in motion. There's no better place to see this than an airplane that's about to take off, right? Think about when you're sitting on an airplane and the engines really start, right? It gets really loud. The cabin starts shaking a little bit and it's trying to get off the ground, and then they're pulling and there's so much force throwing you back against the seat. But by the time you reach your cruising altitude, it's very relaxed and it's smooth. And yes, you'll face some turbulence at times, but it's a pretty smooth ride once you're up there. And that's exactly how this is going to go for us. Getting off the ground, starting our momentum takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy. That's why people say losing weight is so much harder than keeping the weight off, right? Because maintaining health is so much easier than getting healthy in the first place, because we're overriding bad habits, losing things, getting rid of things, and basically starting new things. It's a ton of effort, focused activity. You cannot stop momentum and start momentum and keep it going if you're unfocused. You have to be focused with the singleness of purpose. And so let's go back to our rope here that we will continue to come back to. But another choice once you start your momentum is, so let's say you stopped the momentum, right? And you started your momentum. You can stop pulling, think the other side has stopped too, right? So let's say you shifted momentum to your side, whatever your goal is, whatever your activities are, you have shifted the momentum. Now it's in your favor. You can throw your hands up and say, yes, I did it. It's on my side. But if we're going back to the game of Tug O War, the other side, it's not like they just stop pulling the second it starts going in your direction. They keep pulling. If your hands leave the rope, then that momentum is going to shift back to their side, and you've got to start all over again. So what do we have to do once the momentum is on our side? We do have to keep pulling. So there's two times you see people quit usually. One, the most common time is before someone gets started. That's too hard, negative conditioning, I could never do it, and they just never get started. The second time is when they make a little bit of progress and they throw up their hands and say, yep, I did it, and they relax on their goals and they stop focusing and they go right back to the way that they were before, right? The other side will never stop pulling. So in Tug O War, if we're going against someone else in a game, right, eventually they are going to stop pulling. They're going to get tired. The world is not going to stop pulling. That is never going to happen. Social media is not going to stop pushing you articles and posts and things. YouTube is not going to stop pushing you interesting videos. Articles are not going to stop being sent to you. Great food is not going to stop showing up at restaurants. These things are going to continue to happen. AI is going to continue to put out amazing information and go forward with these amazing technological advances. We're just scratching the surface of what that's going to do. So the other side, the noise, the busyness, the distractions are never going to stop. So if we stop, the momentum is going to shift back immediately. It's just going to happen. So I want you to picture this, right? Imagine you're pulling so hard, and finally that momentum shifts. And right, I just spoke about this previously, but imagine you and your team, and you've been talking about this game of tug of war, and you're doing amazing, and you literally throw your hands up in the air. You let go, you drop the rope, and you throw your hands up, right? And you say, yes, we did it. And you're celebrating, you're high-fiving. We made it. I can't believe we did it. What is happening while you're celebrating? The other side is just pulling, and that rope is just going further and further and further away, right? So you can never drop the rope. Never, never, never drop the rope. You can't. The same activities that gave you that momentum are the same activities that will keep your momentum. Are those activities going to become easier once that momentum is on your side? Absolutely. But those are the same activities you're going to have to do. Going back to when I was marathon training, like at the beginning, at first running 1 mile was so hard. Now going and running a mile, it's just a fun little thing we'll do after work one day. But then there came a point where running 18 miles was as hard as running that 1 mile was at the beginning. So I'm getting way more accomplished with easier effort than ever before. But if I would have stopped training, it would have gone all the way back to that 1 mile being difficult again. I had to keep running, keep training, keep pushing myself, keep adding distance, adding pace. And that's with everything in life. So far we've got our rope. And what we've talked about so far is you've got the world and you've got you. It's really simple. It's one rope. It's two directions, you and the world. The world is pulling against you and you are pulling against the world. And that's it. But that is actually a very simplified way to look at it. And I'd like to present to you how I believe it actually looks. Okay, this is the LMI total leader concept, right? And again, with LMI, the company that I'm representing today, Leadership Management International, this is something we do around the world. This is called our total person wheel of life, right? It's a wheel, right? This is a wheel. When you see it, it's a circle, it's a wheel. Imagine you're riding a bike and it's a wheel that's spinning, everything's fun. You're riding your bike, no issues. But in reality, is it actually a wheel, or could it also be 6 ropes being pulled in all directions? Right? And so have you seen those pictures before where it looks like two different things and different people see different things? Right? It'll be like this kind of black outline image. You'll say, what do you see? One person sees a lamp and one person sees a face or something like that. Have you seen that? Right? Well, this total person concept can be that too. A balanced life, it looks like a wheel. It looks like it's spinning smoothly. It's all 6 areas. They're all these equally perfect little pie charts. Everything's spinning. We're riding our bike. We're having fun. We're achieving goals in all areas of life. That is what the total person concept is supposed to be. However, if you in the middle are not focused, there's no singleness of purpose, then you're going to be running around in all 6 of these areas. And it's like tying 6 ropes around your waist and having people pulling you in all 6 directions at the same time. Imagine pulling 6 ropes at the same time around one thing, and they're all pulling as hard as they can. You are not moving anywhere. You're staying in the same place, but you are going to be incredibly exhausted and burnt out. If all 6 people end up pulling on one rope, you're going to make a lot of progress in that one area. But if you're spreading out all of your activities with no singleness of purpose, with no focus over all 6 areas of life, and there's no focused purpose statement or mission statement that's flowing through all 6 of those areas, you're just going to find yourself pulling. Well, today I need to focus on my family because I haven't been on a date night with my spouse. I got to do that. Oh, but wait, I got to turn in this work report. Got to do that. Oh, wait, but we need to do our budget for the month. Did we pay the bills? Did we pay the mortgage? Okay, great. Physical. Oh, I need to go to a doctor. I haven't had my physical this year, and I need to go to the gym. I better go to the gym. Haven't been in a little while. I've been eating a little unhealthy, so I need to do that. But I haven't read a book in a while. I need to read. Leaders are readers. And you can see it's just like running around. None of this is intertwined, and it is just overwhelming and stressful. So what do you see when you look at this? Who are you right now? Are you a balanced life? This is a wheel that's working in your favor. All 6 areas of life are balanced and you're rolling and spinning in the right direction? Or is it an unbalanced life with ropes pulling in all directions and you're busy but not productive, right? And so we need to identify which one we are. So what stress and burnout, those are really popular words now, but they don't come because you're not doing enough, right? So again, going back to if you believe that that thing was not a wheel, the total person, if that wasn't a wheel, if that was 6 ropes pulling, if that's where you are right now, you're like, well, I'm stressed and I'm burnt out. Maybe I just need to do a little more. I need to read a little bit more. I need to spend a little more time with my spouse and my kids. I need to do a little bit more work more efficiently. I need to work out a little more. I need to see friends a little more. That's not what I'm saying. You don't need to do more. Stress and burnout come from doing more. Stress and burnout come because you're doing too many things that are not correlated to your purpose. Like I said, we're busier than ever before. And the reality is, no matter which way we cut it, we've got 24 hours a day and we've got to sleep a little bit, right? And studies are showing more and more that if you're not sleeping enough, it doesn't matter what you do. You're not going to be effective. You're going to burn out. You're going to be stressed. You're going to have mental health challenges. It is going to happen, right? So again, we've got to sleep. We've got to balance all these areas of life, but we can't just do more. It's way more about eliminating things that have nothing to do with your purpose than it is adding things to make yourself more balanced. McKinsey reports this year that, or I guess this was 2023 actually, that 75% of workers, one article said 76 and one said 75. So between 75 and 76% of workers are experiencing some level of burnout and negative mental health just from work alone, right? That's just the financial and career part of the wheel. We're not even talking about family and home, physical. We're not talking about mental or spiritual. We're not talking about any of that. This is just work. 75, 3 out of every 4 workers are experiencing some level of burnout and negative mental health from their work. So what we're doing is not working. So to double down on that and say, I just need to do more. Stop. We got to stop playing games. That's not going to work. Doing more is not going to work. We've got to do less, but do the things that are going to give us life and add to our purpose more. We've got to do our high payoff activities more. You've got to have a singleness of purpose, right? Coming back to the subtitle of this entire webinar. If we don't have a singleness of purpose, we don't even know what direction we're going. We're not focused. Where are we going? What are we doing? We're going to say yes to anything that sounds good because we don't know where we're going, right? So we have to have a singleness of purpose. Now, what you might be thinking right now is, I already know this. I know I read Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I watched his whole thing about the circle. I've been there. I've watched all the TED Talks. I've read the books. I've read the articles. I've taken the classes. I'm good. I know that. Give me the tips. Give me the tips. Well, I would venture to say we clearly don't know it. And I would also venture to say you can push back on this. That's fine. I would say it's incredibly egotistical and arrogant to say that we already know this, because statistics are showing that we don't already know this. If we actually knew this, then we wouldn't be so burnt out at work. We would have balance in our lives, but we clearly don't know this. And it goes back to one of my favorite quotes of all time from Lao Tzu. And it says, to know and to not do is to not yet know. What that means is, just because we think we know something, if we're not actively doing what we think we know, then we don't actually know it. So if I say, I know how to work out, I got it, I don't need any help, but we're not working out actively, we don't know how to work out. We don't know what we're doing. If we say, I love my spouse, I know what I need to do, but we're never with them, we never spend time with them, and we're not actively loving them, then we don't know. And so when it comes back to, I know I need to have a singleness of purpose, I know I need to start with why, and those kinds of things, if you have to actually know where you're going and actively be practicing this. If there's no fruit from your life showing that you are eliminating things that fall out of line with your purpose, then we actually don't know this. We really don't know. And we have to be okay with the fact that we may not know this, and we need to start over with the basics and get that momentum back on our side. So when I say it's egotistical, I'm not trying to talk down to any of us. I'm saying we've got to be real with ourselves. We've got to stop acting like we have it all together and we know everything. We just don't. There's more information than ever before, but if we're not applying that information, then it doesn't really matter. And so we've got to start doing something with what we think we know. We've got to start doing something with this information. If we don't, we're just going to run around and be more and more burnt out. So what must you do, right? Now let's get into the practical side of it. And when I say what must you do, let me make it very clear. that I'm just the presenter. I'm the messenger here. I have to do this too, right? And I am doing this, right? In my own life, I've had to eliminate so many things. My wife and I talk all the time about being overcommitted and things we're doing that don't align with our marital goals and the goals for our family and our life and our work and our beliefs and those kinds of things. We need to do this too. It's not just you. All of us need to do this. So what must we do? I think let's just start with the rules of tug of war, right? Let's just start there and we'll build from there. Can you win tug of war without pulling? No. The only thing I've heard, someone caught me off guard one time when I asked this question, and they said, well, what if, you drop the rope and then everyone else is pulling so hard that they fall down? I'm like, okay, well, you got me there. But at some point, you're still going to have to pick up the rope and pull it to your side after they've dropped it, right? So at some point, even in that crazy scenario, we do have to pull, right? And pulling is doing in this scenario. With this metaphor of tug of war, it's doing something. So at some point, you're going to have to do something you just really don't want to do. And the secret is you're never going to want to do it. And that is the sad reality. But until you actually start pulling and doing things that make you uncomfortable, you will not shift the momentum to your side. This quote from Albert Ian Gray was shared by our CEO recently, and I thought it spoke perfectly to this. The common denominator of success is that successful people have formed the habit of doing the things that unsuccessful people don't like to do. Now, before you push back and say, what is successful? Who's to say who's successful? Okay. Bear with me for a second. Just bear with me. I'm getting there. I'll get to that in 1 second. But the common denominator of success is doing things that other people do not want to do, that are not fun to do, but the rewards are worth it. So now let's talk about what is success, right? Let's talk about that real quick. What is success? At LMI, success doesn't mean the person with the most money or the most cars. That's not success. It's not the person with the biggest social media following. Success is the progressive realization of worthwhile, predetermined personal goals. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Success is a journey. It's not a destination. So everyone on social media who's talking about, you want to be successful like me, they're just talking about the destination, right? And a lot of things you'll find is these people who are promoting these things are actually some of the most unhappy, unfulfilled people you've ever met in your life. So we're not trying to be like them, right? We're not saying, okay, you've got to have these many zeros in your bank account and then you're successful. That's not what we're saying. It's a journey. So as long as you are progressively realizing and reaching your potential every day, you are already successful. So you can breathe a sigh of relief, right? It's not that success is when you achieve your 10-year goal. Success is when you've made one step towards your 10-year goal today. And then you do that tomorrow and you're successful tomorrow. And then you do it the next day and the next day and the next day. And it goes back to the idea of an overnight success story. There's all these musicians that come out and one song will go big, right? And it's, oh my gosh, overnight success. Where have they been? Well, they've been in the studio crafting their art time and time and time again, practicing, writing songs, writing music, learning their instrument, perfecting it. The same with overnight business successes. The amount of coding that goes into these things and business meetings and strategic sessions. You look at the marriages in your life, right? Oh man, I want my spouse and I to be like them. That didn't just happen. It wasn't one date night that everything clicked. It was a consistent daily choice if they're going to love each other really well over a long period of time, right? That's how this all works. You think about raising kids. I'm in this right now. I'm so used to a society that says I either win or I lose today. That's just not how it is raising kids. It's consistent encouragement, consistent caring, consistent loving on them and spending time with them. And it's a daily thing. And I'm learning that right now for me. But I can go to bed at night knowing that I was a successful parent if I loved my children well that day. If I was just thinking about 20 years from now all the time with my kids, it's just going to be, I can let so many days pass by where I fail because it doesn't matter if I don't do it today, because as long as I do it 20 years from now, it's good. But today plays into 20 years from now. So I've got to win today. It's a success every single day. Little goals, tiny steps in the right direction can take you really far. Running a marathon is not one big jump of 26 miles. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of tiny little steps that take you there. So again, what do I do now? And that may be what you're asking. What do I do now? I would venture to say you have to have a singleness of purpose and to focus on it, you have to identify what that purpose is. So what do I do now? You have to identify your purpose. And this is another one of my favorite quotes from Lewis Carroll. If you don't know where you are going, any road will get you there, right? And that is so true. If we don't have a singleness of purpose, going back to that wheel of life, right? If it's a wheel and we know where we're going, that wheel can spin us in the right direction. We can make progress in the right direction. If we don't know where we're going, it's 6 ropes pulling against us and we're not getting anywhere. And we think we just say yes to everything because any road will get us there, wherever there is, because we don't know where there is, right? We have to know where we are and where we're going. Imagine going on a road trip with someone and you don't put in an end destination. I mean, it's not even a road trip. You're just lost at that point. And I think a lot of us are operating just lost. We're so busy and we have no clue where we're going. And so if we don't know where we're going, any road will get us there. So I believe that your personal mission statement is how we can identify your purpose. And so I am a big coffee drinker. I've got it right here. And in fact, I'll take a little sip because I'm talking a lot. I need to make sure I'm drinking something in the middle of this. But I like to imagine that your personal mission statement is a coffee filter for your life, right? What do I mean by that? So hopefully most people here know what a coffee filter looks like and how you use it and those kinds of things. Even if you don't drink coffee, you've probably seen them and you kind of know how the process works, right? So you take your coffee grounds, you put them in the top, but you put a filter in first, put your grounds in the filter, hot water is poured over the grounds, and the coffee that is meant to be consumed drips through the filter into the pot at the bottom. You pour that pot of coffee into your cup and you consume it and it's good, right? And it gives you energy and it's helpful and those kinds of things and all those kinds of things, right? But what is that filter doing? It's filtering out what doesn't need to be consumed and it's filtering in what should be consumed. So I want to imagine a couple things here. Let's imagine that you don't put any coffee grounds in. There's no coffee grounds, just a filter and you pour water through. What are you going to get? Just a lot of water. It's a lot of effort and you started off, you're getting what you started off with. You went nowhere, right? So the grounds are kind of like the activities we've got to do, right? Or we've got to have that singleness of purpose, right? If we don't have a singleness of purpose, the coffee grounds, and we pour the water over it, nothing's going to happen. So then let's say we have the coffee grounds in and we have the filter in, but we don't pour hot water. Hot water is the activities, the daily steps, right? I think it's just going to sit there and eventually it's going to go rotten. If we just leave coffee grounds sitting in our machine for weeks and weeks and months and we never do anything with it, it's just going to go bad and it's not going to do anything for us. Now, I think this is probably what most of us do is let's say we have some sort of purpose and we're doing activities, but we have no filter, right? So you put the grounds in and you pour water over it with no filter there. A lot is going to come through. It's going to fill up the pot really quickly. And the pot is going to be full of nasty, chunky grounds. And when you try to consume that, it's going to taste terrible. You're probably going to get sick from it. And it's just not going to be good for anyone, right? That's what we're doing. We've got more water, more activities than ever. We have an idea of our purpose, right? We have probably too many purposes. So it's not a singleness of purpose. But we have no filter. We have no personal mission statement, no singleness focused purpose, right? And so we're just pouring activities and activities and activities over these grounds, over this purpose. And there's nothing being filtered out. We're just adding and adding and adding and then trying to consume it. And we're wondering why we feel so bad all the time because we're drinking and consuming things that we probably shouldn't be, right? So the personal mission statement is a coffee filter for your life. And now once you have that filter in place, that personal mission statement, you can do the filter test is what I call it. And this is what I do every single day. From the smallest decision to the biggest decision. If it doesn't pass through my filter, which is my personal mission statement, I throw it out. So if it's a coffee ground and it doesn't pass through the filter, whenever I throw away those grounds, that's discarding everything that I didn't need, right? Everything that I didn't want to consume. Right? Everything that wasn't meant to be consumed. So you can start doing this filter test in your life today. When you have a personal mission statement, you can say, does this pass through the filter of my personal mission statement? Is it adding to my singleness of purpose? Is it aligned with my values? Is it aligned with my personal mission for my life? If yes, you can consume it. You do it. If not, you throw it out. And it's not even a bad thing. Coffee grounds aren't bad. They can give you amazing things. They give you an amazing cup of coffee. But just munching on coffee grounds is not going to go well for you, right? So let's go back to the wheel of life here. Instead of 6 ropes pulling you in all directions going nowhere, you have to start filtering each area of life's goals through your personal mission statement. So when you have all these goals in all 6 areas of life, you need to filter them through something to turn those ropes into a wheel. By passing these goals in all 6 areas of life through your coffee filter, through your personal mission statement, it'll turn those ropes into a wheel, and you can get that wheel balanced and spinning smoothly in your favor towards the direction of your overall purpose and overall goals. So how do I create my personal mission statement? What is my purpose, right? I'll present 3 questions to you that can help you start working on your personal mission statement. If you're really interested in working on your personal mission statement, follow up with me after this webinar and we can have a more in-depth discussion about it. But one, you just need to answer, what are the highest priority roles that I fulfill every day? What are the things I do every day? So in my life, right? I'm the president of LMI. That's a high priority role. I'm a dad. I'm a father, right? To my boys. I'm a husband to my wife. I'm a son to my parents. I'm a brother to my brother. I'm a friend to my friends, right? I've got these different things, but I've got to rank those in priority. They've got to be ranked. I can't say work, family, friends. Yep, they're all important. No. Which one is most important, right? You have to make that decision because at some point, those things are going to go against each other. At some point, I'm going to need to do something for work. My family's going to need me, and there's a friend that's going to need something. All 3 of these good things are going to need something at some point. Right? So I've got to rank them in order of priority. What is the highest priority role in my life, in your life, that will, when these things go head to head, this one is going to take place. This one will be more important than this other one, right? We have to know that. We have to decide. 2, second question, what values and ideals are most important to who you want to be? There's so many good values out there, so many great ideas. But which ones are most important to you? We can't, if everything is important, nothing is important. If everything's a value, then you don't have any values. And if a value is important to you, but you're willing to go back on that value when it's in your favor to do so, then it's not actually a value to you, right? So what values and ideals are most important to who you want to be, right? That is what we've got to think about there. 3, what are the most important long-term goals and achievements you wish to attain? Let's think long-term, and then we'll break it down to super short-term. But when you're working with your personal mission statement, I've heard it said before, this 3rd question is, what do you want listed on your tombstone at the end of your life? What do you want people to remember you for? What are the most important long-term goals and achievements you wish to attain? What do you want your obituary to say about you, right? Those are the most important long-term goals and achievements you wish to attain. Once you've answered those 3 questions, honestly is the key word there, you can begin your personal mission statement. But once you've finalized that, you can start filtering all of your life's decisions through it. And this will give you that singleness of purpose in all of your areas of life. When we start making progress in all areas of life towards one focused singleness of purpose, that's where momentum happens. That's where we start gaining ground, right? That's where the rope starts pulling in our favor. And when we do that, again, we can't drop the rope. We've got to keep that momentum going. We've got to keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling. Singleness of purpose gives you 2 things. They're both equally important. The ability to confidently say yes to something because it fits your purpose and it fits your mission, but it also gives you the freedom to confidently say no to things, even if it's something good. And the second one, I think, is way more important than the first one. Most of us don't have an issue saying yes to things confidently. We have a hard time having the freedom to say no to something. So if you can be presented with a great opportunity, but it doesn't align with your purpose or your focused vision for your life and what you're trying to do at that phase of your life, you need to know you have the freedom to confidently say no to that thing, even if it's good. And the reality is, if we're saying yes to things that we should be saying no to, we actually might be stealing an opportunity from someone whose singleness of purpose more aligns with that. And at LMI, we want to develop leaders and organizations to their full potential. We don't have a scarcity mindset. We have an abundance mindset. And so when we're saying yes to everything, that's a scarcity mindset. I have to do it all because another opportunity is not coming. That's just not true. Other people can take these opportunities, and we need to say yes to the right ones at the right time, right? We have to confidently say yes and confidently say no. These are two quotes about saying no that I think are so important. This is the hard truth about focus that you must accept. You must make sacrifices in order to develop a powerful focus. The more you're willing to sacrifice, the more focused and effective you'll be. Notice it didn't say anything about the more you're willing to add. Because the more you're willing to sacrifice, the more focused and effective you'll be. Another one is from Steve Jobs. People think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas that there are. You have to pick carefully, right? It's way more about saying no to a lot of things and saying yes to the specific things that are most important to us. So if you are someone on this call or you're watching this recording and you are overworked, exhausted, you're burnt out, or overwhelmed, if you're any of those things, and you put your hand up and you're like, that is me. I am one of these things or all of these things. You need to simplify your life and amplify your impact, right? If we try to amplify our lives and our impact and add all these things, we're not going to amplify our impact. We have to simplify our life through saying no to more, by putting it through our filter test, through our personal mission statement. That will amplify our impact through focused singleness of purpose. But I have to say, this webinar is not enough to change anything about your life. I am not such a great speaker. This is not such a great webinar that you're going to be changed through this. It's just not going to happen. It is not going to happen. There are speakers that are way better than me, webinars that are way better than this one. And the reality is those aren't going to change your life either, because studies show that in 20 minutes, you will forget more than 50% of what I've said today. That's just 20 minutes from now. We're well over 20 minutes into this presentation, so you've probably already forgotten 50% of what I've said previously or more. But in 6 days alone, you will forget roughly 98% of what I've said, unless you go back and watch this like 6 more times. Which I don't think just watching this webinar 6 times is what we need to do, right? Maybe watch it a couple times to internalize the concepts a little bit more, to change our conditioning a little bit more, right? But it has to be coupled with action. We have to take action. Remember, to know and to not do is to not yet know. We have to do something. If we don't do anything, we're not going to get anywhere. We're going to forget everything and nothing will change. One step in the right direction is better than 100 years of thinking about it. That is one of my favorite quotes. So after this webinar, if you're thinking, what is my purpose? What is my mission statement? You just think about it all the time. The person who leaves this webinar pulls out a sheet of paper, opens up a Word document or something, and just immediately starts jotting down their personal mission statement. That person is already so far ahead of the person who's still thinking about what their purpose is. You got to start writing something down. You've got to start doing something. Take action. You have to do something. So let's go back to this internal tug of war, right? I said that I had 2 goals. I had 2 goals. I was going to write a book. I was going to run a marathon. So on the world side, there was unhealthy food, watching TV, doing other hobbies, and countless other things pulling against those goals of writing a book and running a marathon, right? And so I had a decision to make every single day. Was I going to write a little bit, run a little bit, or was I going to give in to the other side that was way easier? But I had a little help, right? I wasn't doing this on my own. I wasn't trying to make this all happen on my own, right? I had some help. I used LMI's Effective Personal Leadership Program. This is a daily activity that helped me so much. I am a product of this program. This program changed my life. It helped me identify my long-term goals and break those goals down into daily action steps that allowed me to make progress in my life over time, that allowed me to start achieving my goals. So I was reading the materials, listening to the content, filling out our goal planning system forms, working on a master dream list, writing out my dreams, turning those into goals, using the LMI process and the LMI concept in my favor. I told everyone about it. I said that I told my spouse, I told my family, I told my friends, I told my colleagues. I have an accountability group that I told, and I have my own internal motivation as well. I decided that I was going to write a book about something I'm really passionate about, and then I was going to run to raise money for a cause that's really important to me, right? So I had spouse keeping me accountable, my overall family keeping me accountable, friends keeping me accountable, my colleagues keeping me accountable, a specific accountability group keeping me accountable. Then I had internal motivators attached to these tasks that I needed to do. So I let a ton of people know so that there was no backing out then. And I was able to do it. This is not to boast about what I've done. This is to say that, trust me, if I can do these two things, if I can write a book, if I can run a marathon, I promise you, promise you, you can do it. I can guarantee you that you can do it. I could not run a mile. I literally couldn't run a mile. And I was able to run the Chicago Marathon in 2021. And it was awesome. It was so fun. It was an amazing experience. I was able to write a full-length book. Who would have thought, right? My longest thing I'd ever written was 20 pages. I was able to write a full-length book. And again, that's not to say, look at what I did. That's just to show that look what can happen when we have a singleness of purpose. We can go from someone who has no idea what they're doing in regards to the goals that they have to someone who can do that thing. It is possible. You can do it, but it takes time. It doesn't take just one webinar or one book. It's daily activities over and over and over again. And don't ask me any questions about what place I finished in the marathon. That's not the point here. The point is I finished, all right? So we're going to be happy with the fact that I finished that, all right? And that was the goal. That was the goal. It wasn't to win or even finish in the top half. It was to finish, and I did. So, okay, let's just be happy about that, right? So let's go back to the rope one more time. You've got low payoff activities and distractions on one side, and you've got high payoff activities on the other side. It's all based around your activities. When you see high payoff and low payoff, that does not just mean monetarily speaking. It's not just about money. Hanging out with my kids is the most high payoff activity, one of the most high payoff activities in my life right now. Being with my spouse, right? These are incredibly high payoff. Am I making money by doing these things? Absolutely not. When my wife and I go on date nights, it's Valentine's, right? We're about to go. We're going to an expensive dinner. It costs money, but it is the benefits far outweigh the cost of it. Right? So high payoff doesn't just mean it's going to make me more money. High payoff means it is getting me closer to my overall purpose. It's going through my personal mission statement. It's passing the filter test with flying colors. Everything is good. It works. It's exactly what I need to be doing. Low payoff might actually make me money. It may be something that pays off a lot, but it may not go align with my values, right? Some people work in these companies where they're making a ton of money, but their purpose has nothing to do with the company they're a part of, right? I would advise you to look at how can you make your career align with your values, right? I'm not saying you have to jump ship today and do something different, but how can you start aligning your values to what you do every day? That's why I'm with LMI. Every single day, my job aligns with my values, and what we do of impacting people and making a difference around the world through leadership development. Whenever we make a sale or we find a client or something like that, I know that a life is about to be positively changed forever. That means a family is changed, a community is changed, a company is changed. That gets me excited to work. It's high payoff for me. It makes me excited when I'm home. I can turn off work. I can be with my family because I know that our organization is one that we value work-life balance. We value the total person concept. That is so important to us because the total person matters so much more than just one area, than just the work, right? So we've got to look at that. We've got to look at that total person. And so again, we can join the world. We can be distracted. We can be busy. We can stand in the middle and end up on the wrong side passively, or we can pull against those distractions and take a step towards the goal. The choice is yours and you have to decide. So my final question to you as we wrap up is, what are your massive goals for your life? What are they? What are the things that started as dreams that you want to turn into goals? And it is time to do something about it. And we at LMI would be honored to assist you with that. We have a proven process that's worked in almost 100 countries around the world, over 30 languages, over 2 million participants. We would love to partner with you in your success. So if you want to do this without us, go for it. That is awesome. We wish you nothing but success in that journey. If you would like us to assist you in it, we are honored to do so. We would love that. We would love to serve you as you achieve your full potential. Thank you so much for joining us today in this webinar, for joining me and all you around the world. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Again, my name is Jonah Erbe. Last name is Erbe. So if you missed that at the beginning, it's Jonah Erbe. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a message if you would like to speak further or would like more information about LMI and achieving your goals in all areas of life. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate you attending the webinar today.